important things about our methodology that we look at is that we can really tell through this data-rich project that there are some excellent schools in the state of Texas. We know how to do good schools in the state of Texas. Time and again, city after city, we find terrific schools, standout schools that are arguably some of the best in the country. We know that parents want to know which are those schools. We know that parents want to be advocates for their kids so they can see which schools they should be sending their children to and which schools are the high performers. When we look at these very good schools, there are a couple of key factors that really come to light. One is that in each one of these top schools, there are very high expectations of the students. We also see within these schools teachers with a missionary zeal, and we see terrific school leaders, terrific principals, terrific directors of these schools. The other very key thing that we find is that inevitably these schools are figuring out ways to have more time academically with their students, whether that be school on Saturdays, whether it be longer school days or longer school years. But more time on task is a common denominator of these schools, especially those that serve students with economic disadvantages. The other thing that we find is that these schools are using data to really inform their decision making on how to take care and how to get students to progress. The thing that we're not finding enough of are that all these schools are using this data, all of these schools are using these characteristics to develop themselves. In other words, we have some very good schools, but we don't have enough very good schools for all of our students. Our ranking methodology is such that we look at lots of broad factors from SAT and SAT all the way to GAIN scores. Within each high school ranking, we're looking at 16 different indicators, 12 different indicators for middle schools, and 16 different indicators also for elementary schools. The other thing that becomes clear to us as we look at this is that we have too many children in the state of Texas that are dropping out of schools. In Texas, 30% of those children that start in the 9th grade will not finish high school. In Travis County, 33% of those that start in the 9th grade will never finish high school. That number is too high. These are economic assets to our country that are not producing and that we need to turn around that dropout rate. How does Austin compare with the rest of the state? Interestingly, 35% of Greater Austin schools finished in the top tier of the state of Texas. That's a very good percentage for Austin. Only 17% finished in tier 4. At the elementary school level, Canyon Creek, number 1, which we'll recognize in a bit, is number 13 in the state of Texas. At the middle school level, Canyon Vista, number 1 in our area here, number 7 in the state. Dan Richards School for Young Women Leaders, number 2 here in Austin, number 18 in the state. And at the high school level, the Star Chaparral Charter School, number 1 here, 21 in the state. We're doing a major study, Children's is doing a major study along with the KDK Harmon Foundation, along with the Bo and Catherine Ross Foundation, and we're looking at what has been the impact of budget cuts in the State House to education. It's very clear to us as we look across the state that to maintain these top schools like the Ann Richards School, to maintain all these top high schools, middle schools, and elementary schools, money is going to be needed to make sure that we maintain that. But moreover, if we're going to look at some of these schools that are low-performing schools, if we want to turn around some of these schools, again, we're going to need funds to make sure that we can turn around these schools. And we are, in certain cities across the state of Texas, in certain school districts, schools are beginning to turn around. But we know with this budget crisis that things are looking dour. And parents need to understand that they can't just sit back and let the students just go to the neighborhood school. Parents need to be involved in the neighborhood school, or parents need to use these rankings and other pieces of data to figure out which school suits my child best. Which school may I send my child to where they indeed will be successful? And so we're really looking forward to parents continuing their role as advocates. All the principals that are lined up on this stage are representative of the really best in the Austin area. These are schools based upon hard data that are outperforming other schools. These are schools that are doing a very good job with the students of those schools. So this is just a brief acknowledgement of the very good work that they're doing, but I know that you students will help us applaud as we look at these great schools. The number 5 school in the Greater Austin area is Spicewood Elementary from Round Rock ISD, represented by Principal Beth June. The number 4 school is Laurel Mountain Elementary, Round Rock ISD, Principal Jan Richards. 78% of their kids commended at 4th grade riding tax. Laurel Mountain, a great elementary school. The number 2 elementary school from Eanes ISD, represented by Principal Brian Shippey, is Barton Creek Elementary, another school that does great on tax math here in Austin. A wonderful school, Barton Creek Elementary. And the number 1 elementary in the greater Austin area, represented by Principal Elise Moffitt from Round Rock ISD. They do a terrific job. The number 1 school, Canyon Creek Elementary.
Morning, girls. I'll have a really long speech prepared so you don't have to go back to class. How about that? Basically, I'd just really like to thank the Children at Risk organization for providing some positive publicity for our schools. That's kind of in short supply these days. I want to thank our Canyon Creek staff and the families who support our school in so many ways, and this is quite an honor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Another elementary school that we want to recognize today from the Austin School District, represented by Principal Adriana Gonzalez, is St. Elmo Elementary. St. Elmo is one of those schools where a lot of the kids you would not expect that they'd be successful. This is a school with high levels of poverty, high levels of Latino students, but what we're finding is that, yes, they are very, very successful. They're doing everything beyond expectations. We want to recognize St. Elmo Elementary. Let's look at the middle schools. A high-performing charter, KIPP Austin College Prep, represented by Assistant Principal Taylor Nichols, the highest attendance rate in Austin, 98.3, KIPP Austin College Prep. The number 3 middle school in the greater Austin area from Leander ISD, represented by Principal Suzanne Sullivan, Canyon Ridge Middle School. The number 2 middle school in the greater Austin area, represented by Principal Jean Goka and the Ann Richards School for Young Women Leaders. And the number 1 middle school in the greater Austin area from Round Rock ISD, represented by Principal Barbara Paris, the highest percentage of commended 8th grade math tax in Austin, Canyon Vista Middle School.
Congratulations to all of you and all of the great things that you do, and thank you for this honor. I will tell you, we're not unlike you. We have a wonderful, yeah, I know I talk funny, don't I? I'm sorry. This young lady in the front's going, what's she saying? I don't understand. Just remember we had this language first. We have the trifecta going that you have, which is fabulous teachers, wonderful parents, and most importantly, great students. And my only job is to stay out of the way and not break anything. So thank you very much.
And our Gold Ribbon Middle School is from Austin AISD, Webb Middle School, Principal Ray Garcia. They're doing a fantastic job. Webb Middle School. Let's look at the high schools. Interestingly, when you look at the high schools, people tend to pay a lot of attention. You know, when we started doing these rankings, we were looking just at high schools and people were paying attention. And what we realized is that it's all about also recognizing elementary and middle school. But still, when we talk about where we graduated from school, we talk about our high schools. And when we talk about the top 10 high schools in Austin, we're talking about some spectacular schools that are really serving their kids well. First, the number 10 high school, McNeil High School, Round Rock ISD, represented by John Yonker 84 of their percentage of AP IB test takers were above the criterion, a great high school, McNeil High School. The number 9 high school in the greater Austin area from Lake Travis ISD, represented by Assistant Principal Ross Sproul. Lake Travis High School, over 90% of their students take either the SAT or ACT. Another great high school, Lake Travis High School. The number 7 high school in the greater Austin area, from Dripping Springs ISD, represented by Principal Kim Cousins. Over 80% of their 11th graders scored at the commended level of the TAKS Social Studies exam. Dripping Springs High School. The number 6 high school from Austin ISD, represented by Principal Donna Hauser. Nearly 3/4 of their students who take an IP or AB exam score above the criterion. Anderson High School, number 6. The number 5 high school in the greater Austin area, represented by Principal Mustafa Altendag, is Harmony Science Academy of Austin. The number 4 high school in the greater Austin area, out of Eanes ISD, represented by Principal Linda Rawlings, the highest percentage of students who take advanced courses in Austin, Westlake High School. The number 3 high school in the greater Austin area, represented by Principal Julie Atchley, 100% of their students completed the recommended high school program, the NIOS Charter School, number 3. And the number 2 high school from Round Rock ISD, represented by Principal Becky Donald, the highest percentage of commended 11th grade math TAKS in Austin, Westwood High School. And the number 1 high school in the greater Austin area, represented by Principal Marcia Hagan, 100% of their students took the SAT or the ACT, and they had the highest ACT average in Austin, the Chaparral Star Academy. Please welcome them up.
Someone once said that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that thought epitomizes what goes on at Chaparral Star Academy. We're small, but we know all our kids, and we love them. We have a fantastic staff, a fantastic PTSO, and tremendous students. This week, we won't get a lot done because a lot of those students will come back to visit us because they remember their days at Chaparral Star Academy. We're a wonderful school. I'm honored to be there, and thank you so much for this honor.
It's not going to be long, Ann Richards Schools, before you guys are the number 1 high school, right? So we want to bring up a couple of key leaders for you guys to hear from today, people who really care about our public schools. First, welcome a real champion for children from here in the Austin area, State Representative Mark Strama.
Hi, everybody. Can I tell you, it is really cool for me to be at the Ann Richards School for Young Women Leaders because my first job when I got out of college was working for a woman named Ann Richards. And she got me started in politics, and I can tell you, for everyone who used to work for Ann Richards or who was a part of her time as a leader of the state of Texas, it is really exciting for us to come and see the legacy that she's left here on this campus, and y'all are that legacy. So it's an honor for me to be with the students here today. It's also an honor for me to be with these principals and superintendents and to get an opportunity to recognize what's right in our public school system, to get an opportunity in a year, and especially for them to have achieved this success against the very difficult environment that we in the legislature created for them in the past year. Just a year ago, some of the principals were reminding me, how difficult it was to prepare for this school year because they'd been told they had to lay off a significant portion of their staffs. They'd been told that they had to cut a significant part of their budgets. And there is a direct relationship, as much as people may want to dispute it, there is a direct relationship between the resources we provide schools and their ability to provide you the best educational opportunities in the form of small classes and extremely well-qualified teachers and all of the enrichment and support services that you are entitled to as students, and that we owe you if we want you to deliver what we need you to deliver for us when you enter the workforce. There's a couple of other things worth noting about the schools that are being recognized today. All the schools that are being recognized today are populated by teachers who care and who are well qualified, by principals and leadership, all the way up to the school board level that really is committed to your success. But guess what? The schools that aren't on this list also have teachers who care, also have qualified teachers and committed leadership. What's also noteworthy about these schools is that I think every single one of them, you would say, is populated by students whose parents are enormously engaged in the academic lives of their children, are committed to the academic success of their children, and that propagates throughout the entire campus. Many of these are schools of choice, where you actually had to choose to attend that school, which means your family has taken the initiative to seek for you the best educational opportunity that meets your specific needs. This is one of those schools. Many of the others are schools with extremely well-prepared students from the time they walk onto the campus. And what we are looking for in these exemplary schools that we're recognizing today are the best practices that we can take to all the other schools. And what I hope parents who are reading about this or watching this on television will note is that one of the best practices is the one that's most difficult for school administrators to replicate. It is for parents to be engaged in every aspect of their child's academic life. And the other thing, and I want to tell the students this very specifically, the other thing is that these are rankings based on test scores. When I graduated from high school, the government published a report called A Nation at Risk. And it declared my generation of high school students the dumbest crop of kids the American public school system had ever produced, and predicted that we would lead the American economy into the third world. What actually happened when my generation entered the workplace in the 1990s was that we led the biggest productivity boom in American economic history. I'm not going to say we invented the internet because that has gotten some politicians in trouble, but we taught everybody what to do with it. We turned it into something that changed the world. Why did the government report, A Nation at Risk, misunderstand my generation of students so badly? Because they only looked at our performance on standardized tests. And that's not the only measure of a quality education system, and it's not the only measure of your success on campus. I will tell you this, and the teachers here are going to probably ride me out of town on a rail when I say it, but I learned as much or more from my extracurricular activities as I learned in the classroom. We have in the American public school system a system that includes things outside the classroom that are as enriching and as important to your education and as preparatory for your future careers as what we do in school and what we measure on tests. Whether you participate in after-school debate clubs or band or journalism or athletics, all of those things are teaching you to collaborate with your peers, to compete, to be creative, to solve problems, things that are very hard to measure in these rankings, things that are very hard to measure on standardized tests, but things that make you better prepared when you enter the workforce. And so I know that this is a school that embraces that philosophy as much as it emphasizes scoring well on standardized tests. I know that you guys are receiving the type of enriching education we want for every child, and I hope that we can provide that to every student in the state of Texas someday. Thanks all, and congratulations to all.
You know, we know that there are many barriers to kids who are going to school all over this country, and Austin isn't immune to the challenges and the barriers that face students every day. And it's my job and the job of these leaders up here, whether we're in Austin or all over the state of Texas, to remove those barriers so it's easier for everyone to be able to go to school, feel safe in school, get a quality education, graduate on time from high school, and then go on to college and have rewarding careers. And while we don't always get that right every single time, I just want you to know that I think in the design of Ann Richards and all these other schools like Webb and St. Elmo and Bowie and Anderson and all the other schools and my colleagues that are up here with us, that we are actually really trying to change our systems in the way that we do our delivery models so that there are more opportunities, different choices for you to have, so you can pick the right school for you, so you're inspired to finish and have a great education. So while I know it's the end of the year and you're probably quite weary because I know y'all study really hard, but I want you to know that I am just really proud of your efforts and proud of everyone else who's up here with us today. I'd like to thank Children at Risk for even doing this, for making this possible in the state of Texas and raising awareness around dropouts and graduation rates, because we want to ensure that all of our kids have a real future ahead of them. And we can't do that if we aren't graduating kids on time.
You know, education is a very unique process because you own your education. All of these people here are here to help you, but when you have your diploma, when you go on to college, whatever you do, that is an education that belongs to you and no one can take it away from you. And the fact that you have chosen this school, our students at our school, they go out and get their education for them in the way that makes sense for them. And the way that they have the content area and the content that they need to have a quality education that our state has determined are those areas of content and curriculum, but at the same time, how they also reinforce that. And I think Representative Strama mentioned the importance of extracurricular, of co-curricular, whether it be a yearbook or drama or fine arts or athletics, whatever that is, reinforces what you learn in school. All those curricular areas have to come together and make sense for you. We are honored here because when we aggregate all of the data for our students, our schools do very well, and we're very, very proud of them. But even at that, each school has hundreds of individual students who are learning and gaining their education for themselves. And anytime we have one student or two students, any student who isn't maximizing their education opportunity, we haven't been as successful as we can be. While we appreciate receiving the awards, there are students that may not be getting the highest quality education possible, and these leaders and the teachers in your schools feel like and want to continue to press forward and seek that excellence until they have 100% every single day in every content area, in every assessment or every metric possible. And that's what drives them. It's a journey. It's a journey toward excellence. It's a journey that we're holding your hand and helping you get to your education. And I tell you what, you never finish. You never finish. You may get a diploma along the way. You may get 2 or 3 or 4 diplomas, whatever they are. But when you are a learner, you want to learn for life. When you're curious about something, when you're interested in something, that's when we have been successful, when you continue to want to learn your whole life.
We're really here to say thank you to, first, all the students at all the schools that have done such a great job, from the people from the public, but all of the administrators, teachers, staff at the schools that have done this great job to have these schools be recognized. But I just want to give you a perspective about Austin, if you'll bear with me. We've got about 87,000 kids. When I think of children at risk, I think of families that come from poverty, families that maybe don't know English, families that move. Kids start in one school and finish in a different school. Families maybe the children who have parents who are incarcerated. Just to give you a sense in Austin and where y'all come from, we have over 50,000 kids in Austin who are in poverty, economically disadvantaged, free or reduced lunch. We've got over, say, 20,000 kids that are that don't speak English. They're English language learners. We've got probably, many schools where, Ray, Adriana, you probably could say what the mobility rate is. We have schools where 30% of the kids will start in one school and finish in another school over the course of the year. And we have over 1,000, maybe 2,000 kids who have a parent who's incarcerated. To me, that's children at risk. Those are the kids that have the most challenges. And the characteristics that the schools that are being recognized, and congratulations to all of them, are how do we get those level of characteristics into the schools that have the greatest challenges? How do we make sure attendance happens every day? Y'all's attendance rate for the almost 700 girls that are here is about 97 or 98%. Y'all come to school every day. The level of engagement from families on this school and other schools that are being recognized is very high. How do we do that? We have to also engage the community to help us, because a lot of these families are coming from places where they don't necessarily have as much support at home. And so we are very fortunate in Austin to have a number of nonprofits and other community partners that engage to help us with out-of-school time, provide support in school, mentoring, tutoring, all the things that make a difference in kids' lives. And so this school, which is, I think, roughly 2/3 economically disadvantaged kids, come from all over our district, is really a tremendous representative. Even though there's not any boys that go to school here, there's boys in the room like me right now, but y'all are a tremendous representative of our district and what our district looks like and the challenge we have, and so the success. But I particularly want to say to Adriana and to Ray, who have two schools that come with children that are highly what I would describe as at risk, and for their recognition and for their success, I want to give them a particular round of applause from me, if nothing else. The challenges they face and the success they've had is tremendous. But really, it's important because y'all, as you come out of here, and that first graduating class for all those kids that aren't here, but all of you, really are going to be involved in public schools. You're products of public schools. We need you to be successful. We need you to come back and take care of old people like me when I'm really looking for whatever profession that you guys can support me in. But I want to say thanks to Children at Risk for going through this process and helping us identify the schools that have the best practices and have the characteristics that we need to put into all of our schools so that all of our children can be successful.
The KDK Harmon Foundation is a private family foundation run by a woman in the community with her family that makes grants to nonprofits and schools to break the cycle of poverty through education. And the Ann Richards School is a longtime partner of the KDK Harmon Foundation. I think we've been around with you guys since your inception, and so we are so delighted to see all of these wonderful girls here, especially the graduating class. I just want to speak a little bit more about the project that Dr. Sanborn mentioned at the beginning that we're doing with Children at Risk, moving forward into the next school year and into 2013. We at the KDK Harmon Foundation have invested lots of money in making sure that we provide extracurricular support and interventions for particularly struggling students. And one of the things that we're very, very concerned about is the impact of the cuts to public education on those types of services that we're able to provide. We're particularly concerned about what it means for low-income kids. School Board Member Williams talked about the fact that a lot of the needs that low-income kids have go beyond just academic needs, but sometimes schools are a place where kids go just for maybe their one nutritious meal of the day. It's a place where they come to stay safe after school. It's a place that provides extra tutoring and support, and that is the stuff that we're very, very concerned about might be cut if the legislative decisions at the Capitol keep happening in the way they are. We have seen districts already have to make pretty heartbreaking decisions. We have seen schools being closed around the state. We have seen teachers laid off. We have seen counselors laid off. And that's very, very concerning to organizations like ours that work really hard to ensure you guys have everything you need. We really believe it's our job as taxpayers, as parents, and as community members that care about the future of our state to understand what these cuts mean now and what the future cuts could mean in the future. This is information that we should all want to know. Every parent, every community member, and particularly our policymakers at the Capitol that are making these decisions. Good data will result in better decision making and policy making. If we're going to have to make hard decisions about where we invest in education, let's make sure that data, let's invest some time and some resources to make sure that information is out there and available. We can talk about what's working in education. We can also talk about where we can find some efficiencies and cost savings, but at the end of the day, we need to really take the time to make sure that if we're going to have to make hard decisions about public education, that we make the right decision. So thank you so much. Congratulations to everybody. I really appreciate the time.
when Ann and Caroline and Sarah and others on our staff work and we do the research on what's happening with schools, one of the things that we know is that if you're going to be successful, the easy data to look at, we know that if you're from a wealthy family, we know that if your parents went to college, we know that it looks likely that you're going to be successful. But what thrills us is when we find a school that doesn't have children whose parents are wealthy or children whose parents went to college and they're doing a good job. I grew up with teenage parents. I grew up when I was a kid. I had teenage parents who didn't have high levels of educational attainment. We grew up in Puerto Rico. I went to a little Puerto Rican school. My nickname was Güerito. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine? And so I was one of those kids that needed the extra attention from teachers, the extra attention from principals, people who take you by the hand, people who spend a little bit of time with you and say you can be successful. And so we really applaud all these schools that are doing that are making sure that children are successful, that every child is successful.